Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me on, Jim.
Rick, people are wondering, is the rise in gold the real deal?
I'm still wondering. You know, this is a beautiful rally that we've had, and I kind of jumped the gun with one vehicle that's widely followed by my own subscribers, certainly. It's HUI, the symbol, and it's a Gold Bugs Index, bunch of big mining stocks. And when I say I jumped the gun, it hasn't yet tripped a major buy signal. The index is currently trading 168. But once it hits this buy signal, which, let me give you the exact number here. Well, anyway, the target is up in the 300, so this is a big deal. And I suppose I shouldn't be drum rolling it before it gets there. But it looks pretty good to me. So I'm not completely on board with the gold rally. We've had these bear rallies since the bear market started in 2011, but just taking it one leap at a time. Gold's doing all the right things.
Is silver following along?
More than. You know, when people finally start trusting the gold rally, that's when silver takes off, because silver is nicely leveraged to gold, and we're always counting on the gold-silver ratio to get back in line. Which usually certainly over the last 20 or 30 years has worked in favor of silver when silver was coming off bottoms. So I think you get some nice leverage there in silver.
Is copper accurately measuring the health of the Chinese economy?
China is certainly the biggest buyer at the margin. And of course, if Chinese industrial sector is going great guns, copper is going to do well too. And copper certainly had a nice rally in 2019. It started the year trading down around $2.55 a pound, and currently today, this is the highest high it's had since then. It's trading up around $2.82 a pound. So, you know, I look at it and I can't quite believe it, because copper is a pretty good indicator of global real economic activity, not the digital kind, and it seems to be saying that activity is going to pick up, meaning China is going to turn around.
Well, the Chinese, of course, every year predict their economy will grow 6.7%. It's down to 6.2%, which to them is ice cold. Anywhere else in the world, if your economy was growing 6.2%, of course, under kind of shadowy statistics, but still growing, you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's true, and you got to consider that they are under the weight of the U.S. boycott. That certainly had its impact domestically, and even on real estate, not only in China but in places where the Chinese buy property. You would know all about that, being a Vancouver guy. So even going into 80 knot headwinds, China's doing pretty well. It's not like they're in recession. They're just a couple points off their normal growth rate.
Now, I think it was Robert Campbell who pointed out to me, I asked how Chinese real estate was doing, and he said a survey found there are 22 million vacant apartments in China. And I said, yeah, in a month they could fill all those up too. I mean, if things are going well.
I guess they could, but at some point I read that Chinese speculation in apartments is not the same as here. They're fully invested in essentially brick boxes. There's no, in some of them they're not even, they're not wired, they're not plumbed, and they're just shells really waiting for, the finishing touches so that they be livable. So in that sense, they're very speculative. And, the speculation goes beyond just apartment buildings and residential. We have, I think it was Jim Rickards who reported out on these vast cities that are just waiting for occupants, students, workers, residents. They're essentially ghost towns now. And that's another place where the deep-pocketed savings of China are somewhat challenged to absorb all of this idle capacity.
Yes, and it would go against what you see here. The Chinese like to be surrounded by lots of other people, and trying to convince them to go into some place where there is nobody is very hard.
Yeah, and cities that certainly I've never heard of wind up being among the most populous in the world. I can't even remember their names, but just pop out of nowhere and you've got another relatively small Chinese city of 8 to 10 million. And of course that's big stuff in the U.S., but the density in some of these urban centers that are unfamiliar names in the West is amazing.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWBF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, is there an illusion that we're under a bull market right now, one that's rising?
Well, I sort of look over my shoulder when I talk about how it's an obvious bear rally. It feels that way to me, and I just have trouble believing that all of the problems that were weighing on the market that made U.S. stocks come down so hard from October into Christmas Eve the problems are still there. And, even though we get the Ray Roth part of the rally in the front pages of the Wall Street Journal, they're talking about the low unemployment rate and certain other factors that are bullish. But I wonder how far a bull market can go with U.S. housing and auto sectors both in a critically weakened state.
With GM announcing even more layoffs, somebody suggested to me, it looks like GM is abandoning North America and just going to set up shop in China and remain there.
Well, you wonder. They cut this model and that model. Most of the American manufacturers are cutting back on smaller cars. It feels like the only way they can be marginally profitable is producing 5,000-pound SUVs, lots of steel, lots of engine, lots of everything. And it could happen. GM could kind of ramp up operations globally wherever cars are selling, not necessarily to the detriment of the U.S., but it would certainly idle capacity here. But it could happen, I think, very quietly. You'd read about it from one quarter to the next about how sales from U.S. Point of origin are down, and in the meantime they're perking up in China.
And of course the Chinese car buying market has slowed down as well, but I'm sure compared to the U.S. is still relatively healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me years ago. I guess probably 10 years ago, we were reading about how Buick dealerships in Shanghai were doing just fine, and the price of those cars, the prices were much higher than they would be in the U.S., but somehow the growing middle class in China they were clamoring for big Buicks, and that was kind of an awakening for me. And I guess the market has continued to strengthen since, certainly for U.S. manufacturers who have plants offshore.
Mm-hmm. What about the people who think the best places to be on the stock market are places like Facebook or Netflix?
I'm not a big believer. Facebook, as I mentioned earlier, could be a pariah the next morning we wake up. It has serious issues with privacy, and I think it's going to be increasingly regulated as a bad actor. That's certainly the way the European regulators feel about it. And Zuckerberg has been through enough inquisitions that his true motives have been laid bare. Every time he testifies, he talks about how you control the horizontal, you control the vertical. What you don't want to be out there in public is strictly under your control, and we're just here to make your life better. And I think fewer and fewer people believe that, and the more we find out about how much Facebook knows about us and just how well they're doing selling that information, the more the company is at risk for having its popularity evaporate overnight. So I think that's really a factor in Facebook. And Netflix, of course, has a different model. They're not dependent on advertising revenues, but where it comes to attracting a huge subscriber base, they've got to produce things that are enormously expensive. It's not like it's not a competitive business. And Netflix they've gotten a pretty big lead with streaming content that they produce themselves, but they are going to have a hell of a lot of competition from Disney for one, but also Amazon Prime. HBO is going to probably jump back in the game with a vengeance. And the price that they're all paying for talent right now has been bid into the ionosphere, mainly by Netflix, which, just to give you an example, paid Chris Rock, a very funny guy, $40 million for 2 one-hour specials. So if that's the cost of attracting eyeballs, I think Netflix is right up there against a threshold where smart investors should be questioning how profitable it can remain if that's what they're paying. But you wonder, what kind of numbers do you need? It reminds me, like in baseball, when I see that some guy I was a Colorado Rockies fan, and when they signed Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez for contracts, I think respectively of $120 million and $80 million, I'm thinking, how many Budweisers have to get sold to pay for that? And so the numbers boggle me, really, that somehow they can make back $40 million for a couple Chris Rock specials.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, the marijuana space, are people fascinated with it, maybe because of its mystique?
Yeah, I think they must be stoned, really. I have 2 chat rooms at Rick's Picks, and I try to keep the marijuana talk in what I call the coffee house chat room. But my subscribers are all gung-ho. There are probably, 80,000 companies involved in the business, and we know that only 5 or 6 of them are going to survive, big players. So I think it's a little bit early, even though it's fun. It's almost like watching little mining stocks when gold is just starting to perk up. So the medical uses of marijuana, I think, will eventually, and people have been saying this for 60 or 70 years, they will eventually be well regarded. But right now, the industry is kind of bucking regulators and let's say the clinical end of things. It says, hey, we're skeptical, even though 500 million marijuana users swear by it as everything from an antiemetic, it keeps you from vomiting, it helps with seizures, it helps with migraines. There's the anecdotal evidence for the medical benefits of pot are so overwhelming. It's a wonder that it hasn't made more inroads in the commercial markets than it has.
And of course, too, there's in Canada, it's legal recreationally, although the rollout's been very poor. There's actually very little access to the legal stuff because governments haven't given stores permits to open, and business for them has been brisk, but they're still saying there's a shortage of supply. Why didn't Canada do more research about how to roll it out right like they did in places like Colorado or Oregon?
Well, it's true. Colorado, I lived there for 20 years, and when it happened in a big way, and they didn't hold back. All the product line, the inventories were extensive, so you could buy everything there, and it's the same in California as I understand it. But here in Florida, where I'm living now, it's still in a semi-regulated, which is to say a semi-impaired state, because you need, it's medical marijuana that's sold here, and you need a note from your doctor, and just to expedite that, to get it in less than a couple months, or 3 or 4 months, you need to pay some company a few $100s that specializes in getting your medical card relatively quickly. So the regulation that is on a state-by-state basis is kind of a hodgepodge, and it's partly due to the reluctance of, all lawmakers are not of the same mind where marijuana is concerned, and even in the U.S. we were somewhat conflicted to have Jeff Sessions as the chief regulator, and all these states wanting to kind of break out and sell the stuff and make the markets open.
Do you think the U.S. federally at some point is going to legalize marijuana, not because it's popular, but because they just need the money?
I think they would have done that already, and it's hard to picture a situation where most or all of the 50 states are doing marijuana business great guns, and the federal government still hasn't signed on. You know, in Boulder, in Colorado, what they did was they rode herd early on. They basically, the feds came in and they simply made sure that the locality, in this case Boulder, was enforcing its own laws, which meant no marijuana sales within X number of yards of a church or a school. And I think it was a good way to regulate, because the federal government said, look, we'll let you make your own laws, but we want to make sure that you're enforcing them. And that's how it happened in Colorado, and I think that's a pretty good model for how it should happen everywhere else.
Yes, in BC we still only have a handful of legal private stores or even government stores where you can buy it. Ontario is only going to have 25 legal pot shops for the biggest province in Canada. I mean, I'm telling you, organized crime must be just rubbing their hands in glee, watching a poor rollout so that they can continue to dominate the market.
Well, I know that the black market price for grass was lower in Boulder than the storefront, the store price. It's really because marijuana is taxed so heavily that when you're selling it without that tax attached to it, you can sell it. You can definitely undersell the official stores. So yeah, it's still as long as there's a black market and not quite a black market, but as long as there's a gray market, the quasi-criminal element will flourish. But of course, there's a lot of disagreement as to whether you're really a criminal when you're growing and selling grass, at least at a low level.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
My pleasure, Jim. It's always good to talk.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. If you have any questions for Rick or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.